So first of all, during your career and the bright, broad span of it, you've done an incredible amount of work. Out of curiosity, out of all the plays that you've done, which is your favorite?
Well, it's difficult. Always difficult because when you enter into doing a piece, you know it's going to be with you for a long time, and it's they're like your babies, they keep coming back as well. This when I bring the shows back, it's sort of fall in love with them again, and I'm always the one I'm doing I'm really fond of at the time, and then another one comes along, and so I haven't really got a favorite. I do think that Swan Lake was a big deal for me.
Yeah,
It was a very big deal. It changed my life. That show, the one with the male swans,
yeah.
and it I have to say that I have to mention that because it was so significant. I had a very small company before that, and it made me into an international choreographer. The company started to tour around the world, and it was what I became to be known for. So it's sort of a very significant piece. But there are pieces like Sleeping Beauty, which I feel are very, for me, are very strong versions of those famous pieces. And the other one is Cinderella that we do as well to Prokofiev. They've almost got much more story than the originals, and I'm kind of proud of that. So they're my favorites in one way because they're sort of, I feel they really take the music and do something different with it and tell a much better story, I think.
So about Swan Lake with the male
Yeah.
dancers, how did you come up with that?
Well, because the company that I run is a contemporary dance theatre company, really. But we do a lot of famous ballets. So there's often a confusion about, what sort of company we are. We're not a classical company. So it felt if I was going to do any of these pieces, and Swan Lake was the first, big one, really, I had almost permission to do something very different. I didn't have to use traditional choreography because we're not that sort of company. So I also had to do something different enough for it to be clear that it wasn't the classical version that people think they might have been coming to see. So at the time, it was just a way of doing something that was different enough to have its own identity. And then, of course, it threw up so many interesting things, deciding to have male swans instead of female dancers and still have a prince. It became about many other things. This psychology of the prince's mind, about having a male figure rather than a female figure. It was sort of less romantic, but then it becomes more sexual as it goes along, I guess. It's complex. And it threw up lots of complex things about what was going on in this prince's mind, and I felt that a prince is someone, even today, who cannot be who they really are. It's the one thing, in a way, where it's a no-no, really.
Yeah.
To actually have a gay prince is, I don't know, it's probably still the one thing where it was probably be advised against you to come out, So in a way, it was good to have that royal thing in the story, and play with that. So that it sort of it became sort of more and more interesting the more I delved into it.
About Sleeping Beauty,
Yeah.
what is so different about Matthew Bourne's Sleeping Beauty?
Well, really interesting, and it uses the famous Tchaikovsky music. So there's that, which some people may know, some people may not. And it's great storytelling music. It was a piece I didn't really want to do for a long time because I couldn't find an idea with it. I couldn't find it. It just seemed very grand music. another story about a princess and a king and a queen and everything. You know, it's all the sort of similar things. I just thought, oh, I don't know what to do with it, and I actually decided to do it before I knew what I was going to do with it. So I sort of said, yes, we're going to do it. And I went away and I read all the versions of it, watched all the versions of it, the ballet, the Disney film, any version I could find really. And I came up with a story, which I've sort of grown to love, and lots of new characters as well. And it's about, essentially the story has this 100-year sleep in it. So it's about sort of time travel in some ways. You can travel through a lot of time. The thing that I did that was the big story thing initially was to have Aurora, the heroine, already in love with someone, a young guy, before the curse happens. In the original, he just wakes her up with a kiss, and they fall in love, and that's it really. That's the story, and they get married. So Leo, the character's name, is a sort of a kind of a commoner. He's a gardener or gamekeeper in the royal household, and she has this sort of secret affair with this guy who's not royal, basically. Anyway, so delving into the story further, the story became like, okay, the curse happens, she gets the 100-year sleep that happens. How does Leo stay alive for her when she wakes up? How can he still be there? Because he loves her so much, of course. How can he be there? So the idea of vampires came into my head, because I thought, how can you be around all that time? Well, the vampire has the gift of eternal life. And so with the vampire kiss, with the teeth and everything, he gets the gift of living forever, so he can still be there when she wakes up. The twist is, well, there's lots of twists actually, but the twist is that, of course, he is now a vampiric fairy himself. He's a vampire. So she has to get to understand what that's all about when she wakes up. You know, he's a changed person. He's not the boy she originally knew, you know. So there's all that going on. Alongside that, the wicked fairy Caraboss, which in the Disney version is called, was it Maleficent? For people that know the Disney films and the Angelina Jolie, that's the same character. She was the one who gives the curse to Aurora. She actually dies before the end of the first act, but her son kind of continues her curse and revenge, tries to keep the curse going. So, and it's played by the same performer. So you get a male performer playing the mother and the son. So it's a bit of a surprise when he comes out changed into a man.
Very cool.
And there's conflict between him and Leo all the way through. So it sounds complicated, but actually when you watch it, it's very, very simple to follow. It's like a film. You don't want to know what the end is. I'm not going to give away too many of the secrets because that's part of the fun.
So you basically changed the entire story.
Change the story, new characters, change the sex of some characters.
Wow.
It's what I do. You know, I like to, when I start to look at a piece, I like to have a lot of what ifs. What if we change the time period? What if we, you know, change the sex of this character and that kind of thing? What if the swans were male? You know, that kind of thing. So I do that with all the stories that I do, really.
Very cool. So that must be also like a very big honor for the dancers to play that show, because it's so different than all the other things probably that they've done. Do you have a say in picking the dancers, and if so, how?
Completely.
What?
Completely, of course. Yeah, it's part of running a company. You know, we are an ongoing company. You know, we don't. It's not show by show. So a lot of the people in the show will have done a lot of shows with me. and there's always an influx of new people as well, and they sort of learn from each other. But you know, for my shows, they need to be good actors as well as really good dancers, you know, so they need to be able to tell the story to the audience. And acting becomes a really big part of it, as you will see when you see the show. You know, there's a lot of humor as well. They have to be able to kind of do everything really, and it's a very multitasking show. There's even a bit of puppetry in it, you know, so they have to do that as well, you know. So it's sort of there's a lot going on. They have to be very versatile.
Do you have a fascination with Gothic aesthetics, and if so, how did it came about?
Well, I suppose it's interesting. The reason I set it then is I tied it in to when the music was written, which was written in 1890, the score of Tchaikovsky music. And that was the height of Gothic literature and the height of, you know, things like Dracula being written around that time. So, and stories with fairies in and things, you know, that kind of world. I love it because it's sort of, it gives you a lot of freedom because it's a world where creatures exist, communities that you can invent. I mean, I made up the idea of vampiric fairies. I've never seen anything written about that anywhere. Fairies that have wings but also suck blood, and you know, it's just made it up. And the great thing about that time period is you can more or less just state something, and people have to believe it. You know, you have to believe in the existence of all these different worlds. So there's the buzzer. So
okay.
Okay, so there's my dog. You can see my dog.
So cute. Is it he or she?
It's a he, Ferdinand.
Oh wow, cool.
Ferdinand. Yeah.
Nice name.
I'll try and calm him down now.
What are some of the biggest inspirations that you have in your work in general, and maybe some of your biggest inspirations for this show in specific?
Well, I'm very sort of inspired by film. I've always been a big film lover, so my shows are often called quite cinematic. You know, they're often thought to be quite cinematic in style and the way that stories are told. I want to tell a good story, so anything that's well told, a well told story inspires me. But you know, my pieces have been based on famous ballets, famous books. I've done Dorian Gray, famous films, Edward Scissorhands and the Red Shoes and things like that. You know, so it can come from different sources, but I think it's you know, theatre and film. I would say I was a man of the theatre first and foremost, like a showman, I suppose, rather than just a choreographer. I think so. I think I would say that.
And for this show in specific, any inspirations?
As I say, with the idea of using puppetry, that was a new thing for me in this piece with a baby Aurora, because often she's just a sort of a dummy in a, you know, a shawl. Mm-hmm. She actually has a life. She has a personality. She's a bit of a nightmare as a baby. You know, she's badly behaved and she climbs up things and hits people and things. She's like, and that's
an actual baby.
Like an actual baby. You feel you know her by the time she grows up into the, you know, the human sort of adult Aurora. You feel you know her a bit rather than this sort of mysterious thing in a cot. I have been inspired a lot by trying to represent on stage different characters over the years. So there's always, I try and do something for everyone in a way. But of course, being gay myself, most of my pieces have had gay characters in them. And it's quite odd in dance. It's still the case that you very rarely ever see that. I don't get in, certainly in the ballet companies, there's no gay ballets, no stories about gay people. And I've done a hell of a lot of that, you know, and I'm still seem to be the only one doing it. I mean, you know,
you do.
I know, it's crazy, you know, it's sort of, and it's so much a part of the lives of many of the dancers in these pieces, you know. You know, so I think that's an important aspect of my history as a choreographer anyway, you know, and the sensibility, I think, of my pieces is, you know, comes from obviously comes from me, you know, and I'm a gay man. So it's sort of, it has a sort of camp sensibility sometimes. There's a homoeroticism, even when there's not pure, you know, gay love story or whatever. Yeah. I've seen things change over the years. When I first did Swan Lake in '95, you know, when the two men danced together, the Swan and the Prince, we had people walking out. We had men getting up and
Oh,
walking out.
wow.
We had children, you know, young girls in tears because they weren't seeing the ballerina and
Ah,
everything. We had this whole thing, and it was controversial. It was when we went to a Broadway with it the first time, I was told not to mention anything about that because it became
wow.
known as the Gay Swan Lake, and I was told not to say that.
Oh, wow.
So, but now, you know, all these years later, it's almost so what? It's celebrated. It's become a Christmas show at Sadler's Wells, which is the theatre we perform at in London. It's like bring the family, you know, bring the
Mhm.
kids, you know.
Okay. So you kind of already answered this question, but specifically for the members of the LGBTI plus community
Yeah.
who, well, are known to love ballet, what can
Yes.
they expect from this show?
I'd say in this show, it's sort of under the surface a little bit. There's a sort of the character of Count Lilac, I would say, has a sort of homoerotic appeal, and he, you know, I'm giving away the plot by saying that he does end up sucking the neck of the hero at the end of the first half.
In a nutshell, why should everyone come see this show in Carré this May?
Because it'll be an experience that you'll be really sorry you missed because your friends are going to go and they're going to then tell you they had an amazing time and you missed it. So you've got to come while we're there. We're only there for 1 week.
The first show, right? 2nd of May. I'll be
Yeah,
there.
I'll be there too. I will see you.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you so much,
It's my pleasure.
and good luck with everything, and hopefully we'll see you again soon with Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, come up and say hello if you see me in the
Oh, I will
auditorium.
definitely do that. Yeah, you're there the 2nd of May as well?
Yeah, I'll be
Okay,
there.
cool. I'll definitely say that. Say hi.
Yeah, I'll be there.
Okay, see you
See you
there.
then. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye. Bye bye.